Hey guys, tonight we're going back to a time when just breathing could be considered an occupational hazard. Welcome to the grimy, groaning, unbathed world of the Black Plague. Imagine the year is 1348. The sky is a sallow grey, the streets are sticky with muck, and everything, smells like boiled cabbage and wet dog. You're walking through a medieval town, and every breath is a gamble. The air feels thick with smoke, sweat, and something sweet. No, wait, that's rotting fruit, or maybe someone's foot. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pull your cloak tighter, not that it helps. The wool is damp from yesterday's rain and stiff with old sweat. You think you stepped in something foul. Actually, you definitely stepped in something foul, but it's hard to tell what, because the street is a stew of substances that defy polite description. It's not like this place is dirty on accident. It's dirty on purpose, in that the concept of clean doesn't really exist in any form you'd recognize. Dirt is just part of life, like hunger or your neighbor screaming because his boils popped again. The people around you don't even flinch when a bucket of waste sloshes from an upper window and splatters on the stones. They just sidestep with grim efficiency. This is the routine. This is normal. Historians still argue whether people back then really thought the air carried disease, the miasma theory, or whether they just hated the smell of unwashed humanity and figured it had to be lethal. Either way, cities reek. No sewers, no trash service, just pigs running loose and butchers dumping offal in the gutter. Even dogs give you side-eye for stepping into their favorite poop zone. The average town square is a mosaic of questionable puddles. You don't ask what's in them. You just hope it's rainwater, even though you know that's wildly optimistic. Every breeze carries a new aroma, smoke from fires meant to purify the air, fried fish from a vendor who probably hasn't washed his hands since last Easter, and the unmistakable sour-sweet funk of decay. A little boy runs past you barefoot, through the slime, like it's a playground. His legs are streaked with mud and who knows what. He pauses to sneeze directly into his own shirt, then goes back to chasing a rat, which is admittedly cleaner than some of the people here. There's a curious absence of birds. You notice that? Where did all the birds go? Maybe they had the good sense to get out while they could. You pass a tanner's stall. Bad move. The scent hits you like a punch, rotting hides soaked in urine and animal brains. That's how leather gets soft, by the way. Did you know that? Urine. The stuff you flush away now was once collected, traded, and poured lovingly over cow skins. That little historical tidbit is going to live in your head forever now, isn't it? Meanwhile, over near the fishmonger's stall, someone's trying to drown a smell with a worse smell. A woman is burning rosemary on a makeshift altar, muttering something about keeping the plague away. The rosemary doesn't help. In fact, it just adds a smoky herbal tang to the already complex bouquet of medieval filth. People wipe their noses on their sleeves. They cough into their hands and then pat you on the shoulder. If someone shakes your hand, you may never feel clean again. The word hygiene isn't really part of the vocabulary, and even if it were, you'd be hard-pressed to convince anyone that scrubbing down with cold well water is worth the effort. Plus, water is dangerous, right? Everyone knows it can seep into your pores and let the sickness in. You might as well drink poison. Or worse, drink French wine. Occasionally, you catch sight of someone who looks suspiciously clean. maybe a merchant from Florence or a foreign doctor. You envy them. You hate them a little. You wonder what they know that you don't. And yet, the irony is that clean people get sick just as fast. The plague doesn't care if you smell like roses or rotting eel. Did we mention the bodies yet? You see one now, off to the side of the road, slumped over in an alley. No one moves to touch it. Eventually, someone will drag it away on a cart, but not until the pile gets big enough to be worth a trip. It's morbidly efficient. You overhear a pair of men discussing how the pestilence came from bad air, while another insists it was punishment from God. Someone else swears it's the fault of the Jews or foreigners or witches or cats. Cats, of all things. Historians still argue whether this feline persecution actually worsened the plague by letting the rat population explode. But yes, they were killing cats. As if the lack of purring companionship weren't punishment enough. At the corner of the square, a man with no teeth is selling amulets blessed by Saint Roche. He hasn't bathed in weeks, but he assures you the charm will keep death away. You're not sure whether to laugh, buy one, or run. Eventually, you make it to the edge of town. The air is clearer out here. A breeze carries the smell of grass and distant sheep, not blood and boiled cabbage. You sit on a log, shoes squishing slightly. You try not to think about it. You exhale. You're alive. For now. And tomorrow, you get to do it all over again. Sleep tight. You don't bathe. That's not an insult. It's just a reality. Nobody around you does. Bathing, in the year 1348, is either an occasional ritual or an act of terrifying boldness. If you wade into a bathhouse, you're seen as a risk-taker, maybe even a fool. Why? Because everyone knows that water opens the pores, and when the plague rides the wind, those pores are like tiny doorways begging death to come inside. So, you skip the bath. Again. And again. And again. Until your skin remembers what the sun looked like 3 winters ago. You think about a warm soak now and then. But then you also think about the guy last week who bathed, caught the plague, and died screaming. It's probably a coincidence. But maybe not. You rub a rag under your arms. That's your spa day. Historians still argue whether people during the Black Death truly avoided water out of fear, or if the infrastructure just collapsed so badly that bathing became logistically impossible. But either way, you are not stepping into a tub, not unless it's to bury someone. Let's say for a moment you do decide to bathe. First of all, there's no hot tap. You'd have to heat water over a fire, carry it in heavy buckets, and pour it into a wooden tub that's already warped from decades of use. Your soap might be old lard mixed with ashes. Luxurious. Maybe you've got some imported Castile soap, but that's for rich folk and special occasions. Your go-to is just, well, grayish slime. And privacy? Forget it. The whole family might share the same bathwater. You go first if you're lucky. If not, you're fourth, sitting in a murky broth flavored with your uncle's foot scum. You can almost feel it now, can't you? The bathwater getting colder, thicker, as you sink into it. Someone's toenail brushes your leg, and you try not to scream. But chances are, you never get that far. Most towns have long shuttered their public bathhouses. Too risky, too expensive, too plaguey. The places that once bustled with laughter and awkward soap slipping now sit silent, wooden beams collapsing, their tubs filled with dust and ghost water. Instead, the new form of cleansing is dry. You dust yourself with herbs. You smoke your body over coals. Some people even scrub themselves with rough cloths until their skin goes red, convinced this will drive out the illness. One desperate guy even wraps his body in fresh bread. He thinks it'll soak up the disease. He's probably also very popular with dogs. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Your skin gives off a rich medley of sweat, smoke, tallow, and despair. You layer on perfume if you can afford it, but more on that later. For now, you just stink, and so does everyone else. But here's the upside. You've gone nose blind. You don't even notice anymore unless someone dies near you. Then the air shifts, and you realize there's always worse. A fun fringe fact. In some remote villages, people still believe washing too often weakens the body. The skin is seen as a shield, and removing its natural oils and crusts is viewed like taking off your armor. So yes, there are folks who proudly don't bathe. And in their minds, they're the healthy ones. You scratch an itch under your arm. Bad idea. The bump feels off. Is it a flea bite? A boil? A patch of plague? You pull your sleeve down and pretend you didn't feel it. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe you're just imagining things. You'll find out in 3 days, either way. There are rumors that some nobles still bathe regularly, private baths with servants pouring rose water and rubbing scented oils into their skin. But who knows? Maybe they're dead now too. The plague doesn't read titles. You remember your neighbor, old Marta, who insisted on her weekly scrub. She boiled mint leaves and bathed under the moonlight, swearing it kept her pure. She lasted longer than most. Then one morning she was gone. Her house shuttered. Her door marked with a red X. The mint didn't help. Still, there are people searching for safer ways to stay clean. A few apothecaries mix up herbal powders, sage, thyme, even lavender, designed to dust the body and soak up the oils. You might try that. It doesn't do much, but at least you smell like a salad. One traveling merchant swears by vinegar rubs. He pours it on cloth and scrubs like a madman. His skin is raw, but he hasn't caught the plague yet, so now half the town is walking around pickled. You try it once and end up smelling like a wet pickle jar left in the sun. There's also the sweat it out crowd. They build small tents and sit over steaming pots, thinking they can boil the plague out through their pores. You attend one of these gatherings. It's less relaxing and more like being slow roasted in a meat locker. You leave drenched and dizzy and still unwashed. At one point, you consider swimming in the river, just to rinse, just to feel something clean against your skin. But then you remember that pigs bathe there, and so do corpses. Probably not worth it. Even when you sleep, the grime stays with you. Your sheets, if you even have sheets, are stained with old sweat and crumbs. Fleas are your bedtime companions. Sometimes lice, sometimes both. You scratch in your sleep, and by morning your skin feels raw, and your hair looks like it's plotting something. You haven't seen your reflection in months. There are no mirrors. The closest you get is catching your shadow in a puddle and thinking, "Oh dear, that's me." And yet, somehow, you get used to it. You adapt. Your nose adapts. Your skin adapts. You stop yearning for the kind of clean that only exists in royal courts and fever dreams. You survive, and in this world, that's the only standard worth meeting. You lie down on your straw mattress, scratch one last time, and sigh. Maybe next week, you'll try that bread body thing. Maybe. You wear the same clothes every day. Every single day. You wake up, stretch, and slide back into the same scratchy, unwashed tunic you've been rocking since, well, maybe last harvest. It's wool, of course it's wool, and it never quite dries fully. There's a dampness that clings to it like a ghost. You've grown oddly attached to its stink. You'd miss it if it were gone. Laundry, by the way, is not part of your routine. The idea of scrubbing your clothes regularly? That's a luxury, like owning a second spoon. Sure, if you live near a stream and you're feeling brave, you might take your clothes down and pound them against a rock. But that's rare. It's time-consuming. It's risky. And, more importantly, it's cold. You do the medieval version of airing out, which means you hang your tunic on a bush and hope a nice breeze scares off the lice. Historians still argue whether the lower classes changed their clothes seasonally or simply layered filth over filth until summer forced a crisis. But we do know that many people owned exactly one outfit, maybe two, if they were doing well. Underwear, optional, more like an aspiration. Let's talk about underwear, actually, not the silky stuff. We're talking linen undergarments called shifts or chemises for women, brays for men. These were supposed to be the washable buffer between you and your outerwear. But they didn't get washed all that often either, because water is still feared, and soap is still awful. So instead of laundering them, you wear them until they develop a character of their own. And then there's the itching. You itch constantly. Under your tunic, down your legs, even your scalp. Your body's a festival ground for lice. They live in your seams, your cuffs, your collars. You've named one of them, probably. He's been with you since February. His name is probably Jeff. Delousing is an activity, almost a hobby. You sit outside, pick lice off your shirt, crush them between your fingernails, and flick them into the dirt. You chat with your neighbors while doing it. It's social. It's bonding. One woman swears by sprinkling pepper into her sleeves. She says it keeps the bugs away. Her sleeves smell like soup. You decide not to ask how well it's working. You also get fleas, especially if you have animals nearby, or if you've ever sat anywhere, or touched anything. Honestly, just breathing seems to attract them. The funny thing is, rich people don't escape this either. Sure, their clothes are fancier, velvets, silks, bright dyes, but they're harder to clean and even better at trapping body funk. Ever worn a thick velvet gown in July with no deodorant and 6 layers of padding underneath? No? Lucky you. Some nobles even perfume their outfits between wearings rather than clean them. Just spritz and pray. There's one lord in the next town who reportedly had a manservant whose only job was to brush off his outer robe daily, never wash, just brush. The goal was to appear clean, not be clean. You can't help but respect the dedication. And what happens when your clothes get wet? You try to dry them over the fire. Maybe too close. You remember that time your cousin leaned a bit too far and set his hem ablaze. No one screamed. Everyone just nodded. Fire is nature's dry cleaner. Shoes? Ha! If you own any, they're leather, cracked, and definitely soaked in something unfortunate. If not, you go barefoot. Yes, even in the slush, even in the streets. You develop thick calluses and a permanent grimace. You know where you're stepping. You just try not to think about it. Oh, and you sleep in your clothes. Because what else are you going to wear? They keep you warm. They scare off rats. And if someone needs to flee from a plague cart in the middle of the night, you're ready. Occasionally, a special day comes, a feast maybe, or a market trip, and you try to spruce up. You beat the dust out of your tunic with a stick. You pluck some twigs from your hair. You rub a fragrant herb under your arms, like mint or mugwort. You don't look good exactly, but you look less bad. Progress. You might even sew on a new patch if you can find thread. Your tunic starts looking like a quilt after a while. A quilt of sadness and hard times. Your head covering? That's crucial. Everyone covers their heads, men and women. Not just for modesty, but for survival. It's like a layer between you and the world. Women wear linen veils or wimples. Men wear hoods or caps. Sometimes both. These get crusty fast, but you wear them anyway. You feel exposed without them. Like going out without your phone today, but worse. There's a running joke in town that if someone's hat smells better than their breath, they must be a noble. No one laughs too hard, because it's probably true. And yet, amid all this fabric-borne suffering, you find a strange comfort in routine. You know the feel of every worn seam. You've memorized the pattern of each stain. That mysterious splotch on your shoulder, you think it's from the chicken you tried to steal 2 weeks ago. Battle scars. Sometimes you catch a whiff of yourself and wince. But then you pass someone who's worse. Much worse. And you feel briefly victorious. Maybe you're not winning life, but you're not losing as hard as that guy. Before you sleep, you shake out your tunic, swatch your sleeves, and pick Jeff off your collar. You lay back, fully clothed, and try not to think about what's living in your hemline. You dream of silk sheets, of warm water, of laundry that doesn't involve rocks or desperation. One day you whisper to yourself, you'll own 2 tunics, 2 whole tunics. And when that day comes, you'll burn this one in a glorious ceremony. Jeff included. The streets are not streets, at least not the way you think of them. There's no smooth pavement, no clean sidewalks, no tidy gutters guiding rainwater into well-behaved drains. There's just a wide, muddy trench between crumbling buildings, and it is, in every way, alive. It squelches beneath your shoes, assuming you even have shoes, and it stinks with the ambition of 1,000 sins. You step into it with care, because every puddle might be deeper than it looks. Some aren't even puddles, they're traps. Mixtures of rain, spoiled wine, pig waste, fish guts, maybe a tooth. You don't ask, you just keep walking. Slowly, lightly. Historians still argue whether medieval towns had any structured sanitation at all, or whether what passed for cleaning was just nature doing its thing. Spoiler, it's mostly the latter. You might see someone with a broom, but they're probably just sweeping filth from their doorstep into the street. Out of sight, out of mind. You pass a man dumping a bucket from a second-floor window. He yells the classic warning, "Gardes low," but it's more of a courtesy than a law. You dodge left, almost triumphantly, until you realize someone on the first floor just threw out a chamber pot with no such warning. It lands near your foot with a moist plop. You pretend it's just old soup. It wasn't. The ground here tells stories. You can see where the butcher spilled blood, where someone dropped a dead chicken, where a cart ran over something it shouldn't have. One patch is dark and crusty. Maybe wine? Maybe plague vomit? Again, you keep walking. Animals roam freely. Chickens dart through the muck. Pigs root through piles of scraps, and a cow is stuck in a corner chewing something deeply questionable. Dogs snarl over bones that definitely used to belong to something important. Maybe someone important. And then there are the rats. Plague-carrying, smug, and surprisingly chonky. They don't even flinch anymore. One scurries over your boot, pauses, and looks up at you like you're the problem. You nod respectfully and let it pass. Every so often, you catch the glint of something metallic in the sludge. A coin, maybe, or a spoon. You think about reaching for it, but your fingers hesitate. Is it worth it? You remember your cousin who reached into a gutter for an earring and lost a fingernail. You walk on. The rain makes everything worse. It doesn't clean the street, it stirs it. The water churns through the debris, creating little rivers of filth that rush downhill, flooding alleys, seeping into homes. You've stuffed rags under your door, but they're already soaked through. Your floor is a swamp. Your bed is damp. You curl up anyway. Quirky tip from a traveler you met once: walk with a long stick. Not for defense, but to test the ground in front of you. Poke first, step second. He called it urban spelunking. He fell into a latrine pit once and lived to tell the tale. You believe him. His left foot never stopped twitching. You reach the marketplace and think it might be better here. It's not. In fact, it might be worse. There are fish scales everywhere. The air smells like onions, sweat, and regret. A dead goose lies in the corner, attracting both flies and customers. Someone is selling cheese that's older than most of the children nearby. There's a stall where someone's selling old shoes. You pick one up, sniff it instinctively, and immediately regret your choices. You put it back. The vendor smiles with one tooth. Over near the bread cart, a man slips in something brown and lands flat on his back. No one helps. Everyone just sidesteps. One guy takes the opportunity to steal the man's bread. This is how things work now. Help is in short supply. Bread is not. Sometimes you see people shoveling the muck, not out of kindness, but because they're being paid by the city, or punished. These are the rakers, medieval sanitation workers who use broad wooden shovels to clear the street. Their job is futile. For every pile of dung they remove, 3 more arrive. They work in a sort of resigned daze, muttering about saints and boils. One wears garlic around his neck. Another hums a hymn about soap that you suspect he made up. You give them space. They give you a nod. You bond briefly over the shared knowledge that this place is a giant compost bin masquerading as a town. In richer districts, the streets are slightly better. Someone paid to have gravel laid down. But it's already sunken into the ooze. There's one square where the city tried to build a wooden walkway, raised and elegant, but a cart broke through it last week. Now it's a trap, a stylish, lethal trap. There's a river nearby. You think it might offer relief, but the river is also the sewer. People bathe there, yes, but they also relieve themselves there, wash their meat there, dump their dead there. It is, in every sense, a water hazard. It gurgles ominously. You spot a child scooping river water into a cup. He drinks. You look away. Even the air feels thick. Smoke from countless hearths mixes with the scents of decay. You can taste it, this street. It lingers on your tongue long after you've left. You wonder if you'll ever stop smelling it, or if it's part of you now. Still, you walk these streets daily. You have to. To trade, to beg, to work. You lift your cloak, tiptoe around a puddle, and pray that today's filth isn't tomorrow's fever. At night, the streets quiet, but they don't improve. Lanterns cast long shadows over glistening alleys. Cats fight. Dogs bark. Somewhere, a cart rolls past with a soft thunk. You don't want to know what it was. You crawl into bed with muddy feet, and you don't even flinch. The street is still with you. It's in your clothes, your lungs, your dreams, but you're used to it now. This is your world. Your reeking, slippery, unforgettable world. You feel the urge. Nature calls, and suddenly, your options shrink. There is no bathroom, no porcelain throne, no lock on the door or stack of old scrolls to pass the time. Just you, your full bladder, and a deep, soul-searching question. Where? There are no real toilets. Not for you. Not for most people. If you're lucky, you might find a cesspit nearby, a foul, fly-ridden hole surrounded by planks. If you're unlucky, well, you pick a corner. Preferably not the same one you chose yesterday. Historians still argue whether the average home even had privies, or if most people simply used buckets and emptied them wherever seemed least problematic. Based on the smell of the alleys, though, it's safe to guess that indoor plumbing wasn't topping anyone's renovation list. You do know this. People use chamber pots. Big clay or metal bowls tucked under beds or hidden behind curtains. And when they're full, they get dumped, usually into the street, sometimes into a gutter. occasionally into your day. There is etiquette, though. The yell, "Gardes low," warns passers-by that a wave of personal waste is incoming. You hear it often. You've learned to flinch on reflex, but not everyone calls out. Sometimes you just feel the splash and make a small internal scream. At night, when it's dark and quiet and maybe you've had a little too much wine, you find yourself creeping outside to your favorite bush, corner, or wall. You try not to think about how many others have used it. You try not to slip. You hope no one sees. For women, it's worse. Squatting in a field isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. There are stories of women getting attacked, bitten by rats, even falling into pits that should never have been dug. Some carry bordelots, small, portable urinals shaped to fit under skirts. Discreet, effective, mildly horrifying. A quirky bit you didn't know: some people pee on clothes to clean them, especially when trying to bleach linen. Human urine contains ammonia, which helps remove stains. So yes, the same fluid you fear from windows is also part of someone's laundry routine. It's efficient, if unsettling. You hear about castles and monasteries with fancy garderobes, basically long wooden seats built over a chute that drops straight into a moat or pit. It sounds luxurious, until you realize that moat is just a really wide toilet, and the smell rises like a ghost. There's one merchant's house that has a two-seater latrine. Two, side by side, like best friend thrones. You wonder if they use it for bonding or negotiation. You hope it's not romantic. Children don't even hesitate. They go wherever they're standing. Mud, hay, the edge of the road, it's all the same. Babies? Forget it. Diapers don't exist. You wrap them in cloth and pray for mercy. You've seen toddlers toddling with little trails behind them, like grim fairy tales leaving clues. Public defecation is, technically, frowned upon. But enforcement? Non-existent. The city guards have bigger things to worry about, like plague carts and riotous fishmongers. If someone's squatting behind your favorite bread stall, you just shop faster and don't make eye contact. It's always there. Low and steady, like a bass note in a bad symphony. It seeps into your shoes, your sleeves, your soul. You think you're used to it, until you catch a new whiff and realize your brain had been blocking part of it for your own good. You remember the time it rained during market day. The runoff carried everything downhill. You tried to climb to higher ground, slipping on wet stone while a current of shame rushed past. That day, you burned your socks, even if they hadn't disintegrated. Rats love these conditions. They nest in latrines, sip from puddles, gnaw on discarded food. You once saw a rat dragging a turnip bigger than its head, and then it dropped it and chewed on something softer. You didn't look too closely. There's an apothecary who sells latrine cakes, small bundles of herbs meant to hang near your ahem area. They mask odors. A bit. Mostly they just make everything smell like lavender and despair. But they're better than nothing. You keep one under your bed. Toilet paper? Please. You use moss. Or hay. Or, if you're feeling fancy, a scrap of old parchment. The back of a sermon, maybe. You've learned not to wipe aggressively. Nature punishes the careless. Some folks use sponges on sticks, dipped in vinegar. Shared ones. Communal. You gag a little. The Romans did it first, but the tradition lingers. Why reinvent horror? You visit a friend in the countryside, and they show off their composting toilet. It's just a hole with leaves and pride. Still, you're impressed. You ask if they've named it. They have. The thinker. There's one tragicomic moment. A man falls into a latrine. Entirely. They have to pull him out by his ankles. He claims he slipped. The tavern says otherwise. For weeks, he's known as Sir Pou-a-lot. He moves away eventually, You don't blame him. In some places, you hear rumors of fancy cities with underground tunnels for waste, like in Paris or Rome. But those are myths to you. Fairy tales. Down here, everything goes in the street, down the wall, into the corner, or, worst of all, nowhere at all. And yet, it works. Sort of. You adjust. You plan your day around where you might find a quiet alley. You carry a cloth to wipe your hands afterward. You wash it. Occasionally. And at night, lying on your straw-stuffed mattress, the stars overhead and the smell of vinegar wafting from your chamber pot, you reflect on your choices. You lived another day. You kept your boots dry. You didn't fall in. That, in this world, counts as success. You're sick. Or maybe you're not. But your neighbor is, and your cousin is, and that man who coughed twice in the alley yesterday. He's very much dead now. So you're thinking about medicine, and you immediately regret it. Because medicine, in this time, is, let's say, experimental. Heavy on guesswork, light on success. You walk into a healer's hut, hoping for relief, and instead, you get a steaming bowl of onion mash and instructions to bleed from the ankle. Comforting. Historians still argue whether medieval medicine was more science or superstition. The answer? Yes, it was both. And neither. And something else entirely, equal parts prayer, guesswork, herbalism, and weird smells. You sit on a low stool and describe your symptoms. Headache, weakness, maybe a swelling? The healer squints at you, then points to a jar of leeches. You swallow hard. Leech therapy is trending right now. The idea is simple. Your blood is bad, so let's take some out. The execution? Less pleasant. The leeches are fat, shiny, and hungry. One is named Agnes. She has been reused. While you're being nibbled by nature's squishiest vampires, the healer mashes garlic and vinegar together and tells you to inhale deeply. You do. You gag. He says that means it's working. Another option, onions. Everyone loves onions. Raw, cooked, mashed, boiled. If you can eat it or smear it, it's medicine. Got boils? Rub an onion? Got a cough? Eat an onion. Got actual onions? Congratulations, you're a doctor now. Then there's the burning method. If your swelling looks suspicious, they might cauterize it. With fire. Hot iron straight to the flesh. You try not to scream. Not because it's painless. Oh, it definitely isn't. But because screaming makes the healer nervous, and nervous people make mistakes with fire. A traveling apothecary once gave you a plague ball, a mix of camphor, saffron, and powdered unicorn horn, which is, let's face it, probably crushed seashell. You carry it on a string around your neck. It smells like misery marinated in pine needles. But hey, at least it's not onions. One local midwife recommends bathing in wine. Not drinking it, bathing. You laugh. You can't afford wine. You can barely afford water. She shrugs and tells you to find some cheap ale instead. You soak your feet in a mug's worth and hope your toes absorb the health. Quirky tip of the day. One cure involves strapping a live chicken to your swollen lymph nodes. Alive, feathers and all. The theory is that the bird will absorb the poison. The bird dies. You die. Everyone learns nothing. Perfume sellers claim their scents ward off bad air. You're handed a satchel of dried flowers and cinnamon bark. It smells lovely, until you realize the man who sold it to you has plague pustules on his hands. You wash your hands. In your mind, at least. You meet a man with a staff covered in bells, not because you believe him, but because it's been a very long week and dancing sounds better than chicken therapy. At the monastery, the monks offer a different path, prayer and fasting. The sickness is from sin, they say. Purify the soul, and the body will follow. You fast. You pray. You collapse. No one's sure if that's a cure or just a side effect. One friar gives you a vial of something holy. It smells like spoiled milk and despair. You dab it behind your ears like perfume. You sneeze. He blesses you again. You sneeze harder. Eventually, someone recommends bleeding. Again, this time from the wrist. They say it'll balance your humors. You agree, because what else is there? You feel lightheaded, dizzy, and deeply confused. Success? Your friend tries trepanning, drilling a hole in the skull to let the evil out. You visit him a week later. He says he feels better. He also says the sky is made of cheese. You decide not to follow his path. You hear whispers of foreign remedies, mystical cures from distant lands. A merchant offers you powdered emerald to be stirred into goat's milk and consumed at midnight. It costs more than your house. You buy it anyway. It tastes like chalk and betrayal. Some swear by smelling strong things. Vinegar, pitch, burning herbs. You create a little bundle and wave it in front of your face everywhere you go. People give you space. That's nice. You still cough. The local doctor arrives in a beaked mask. The famous plague doctor. His beak is filled with herbs, mint, clove, juniper. He pokes your stomach with a stick and asks if you've seen any purple patches. You haven't, yet. He shrugs and moves on to the next patient. His robe smells like mold and burnt sage. You ask what he recommends. He says prayers and time. You say you were hoping for something with fewer existential dread vibes. He laughs. So do you. Briefly. The town holds a public burning of old clothes and straw mattresses. It's meant to cleanse the city. People throw in shoes, pillows, half-eaten dinners. You toss in a sock. It feels symbolic. Despite it all, you survive another week. Your fever breaks. Or maybe it never was the plague. Maybe it was just bad fish, or fear, or the onions. Who knows? You lie down, swaddled in your single clean rag, and thank the sky. You're still here, still breathing, still waiting for Agnes the leech to let go. Tomorrow, someone will offer you a new cure involving boiled frog bones and a whispered Latin chant. You'll try it. Because what else can you do? Welcome to medicine, Black Plague Edition. Hope your insurance includes holy water. You scratch your ankle again, absently, reflexively. It's always itchy now. You hope it's just another flea bite. You tell yourself that. But deep down, a voice whispers, it could be starting. You glance down. Just a red bump, not a boil. Yet, the rats are watching you. You pretend they're not. But they are. Fat, greasy little opportunists, lurking near the food scraps and under carts, their beady eyes glinting like judgmental stars. They rule the city now. Not kings, not priests. Rats. They slink through the filth with the confidence of creatures who know you can't get rid of them. They carry passengers too, fleas, small as dirt specks, but infinitely more dangerous. These are the real dealers of doom. The fleas bite the rats die, the fleas jump to you. And then? Well, then you start counting days. Historians still argue about the exact role of rats in the Black Death. Was it really the fleas from rats that spread it? Or maybe it was humans, or even the air. There's still debate. But in your world, you don't need a scholar. You see what's happening. You watch the rats fall over twitching. Then your neighbor gets sick. Then her son. Then the whole street. You remember when you liked animals. When a rat was just a rodent and not a walking omen. Now, you flinch at every twitch of whiskers. Even squirrels feel suspicious. You once saw a goat scratch itself and spent the rest of the afternoon hyperventilating. There's a superstition that cats can drive away plague, not by eating rats, but just by being cats. Mysterious, aloof, holy, in a weird, furry way. You like that idea. But then someone decided cats were agents of the devil. They started killing them. Burned, drowned, purged from cities. The rat population rejoiced. A quirky story floats around about a woman who let her cat sleep on her pillow every night and never got sick. She's now known as Lady Whiskers. People visit her for blessings and scratch behind her cat's ears with trembling fingers. Her cat is smug. Rightfully so. You spot a dead rat in the road. Its belly is bloated. Its eyes are gone. You step around it. A few days ago that wasn't there. Now 3 more lie beside it. The signs are clear. People start whispering, panicking. Plague is coming again. Blame starts flying. Someone says it's the foreigners. Someone else says it's the well water. A third points at the stars and insists Mercury is in retro something. You all nod, because sure, why not? In a world where bad smells can kill, blaming the sky doesn't feel like a stretch. The Jewish community gets hit worst. Accused of poisoning wells, spreading sickness, working dark magic. People who once bought bread from their stalls now chase them with sticks. It's terrifying. You watch in silence, too scared to interfere. You hate yourself for it. But you're not stupid. You want to live. You hear that in other towns, entire neighborhoods have been wiped out, not by plague, but by mobs looking for scapegoats. You wonder if your town is next. You wonder who it'll turn on this time. Meanwhile, the fleas continue their work. Silent, tireless. One lands on your wrist, and you slap it so fast your hand stings. You check the spot. Just a mark. Still, you wrap it in cloth, just in case. Some people try to prevent bites by rubbing garlic all over their skin. Others wear flea-repelling amulets, made from amber, or rabbit's foot, or dried frog legs. One man ties a belt of badger fur around his waist. He says it's ancestral wisdom. You say it smells like regret. You try sitting in smoke. The theory is that fleas hate it. You crouch in a smoky room, eyes watering, lungs burning, while someone waves a pan of damp herbs like a holy censer. You emerge half-cooked but flea-free. For now. Children have turned flea hunting into a game. You see them comparing bite counts, lifting their shirts like tiny warriors showing off wounds. One kid says he has 17. Another has 30 and a rash shaped like France. You do not join the competition. Your aunt starts sweeping her floor 3 times a day. She swears it helps. She mutters spells while she does it. You humor her. At least the floor is clean. The ceiling? Less so. That's where the rats live now. You notice a neighbor hasn't been outside in days. You knock, cautiously. No answer. You knock again. Still nothing. You back away, heart pounding. The house smells off. Someone else will deal with it. Eventually. You keep your cloak closed tighter, tucking it around your neck. You don't know if it stops fleas, but it feels safe, like armor. Your ankles are covered. Your collar is stuffed with lavender. Your shoes are packed with salt. You're basically a walking salad. At the market, someone is selling rat skulls as lucky charms. Plague already got 'em, the seller says. So it won't get you. You don't buy one, but you nod solemnly, like that makes sense. Deep down, you're starting to believe everything and nothing. The town calls a meeting. Someone proposes a rat purge. You all go out with sticks and dogs, clubbing whatever scurries. It feels productive. You sleep better that night. But in the morning, the fleas are still there, and the dogs have new scratches. There's a scholar from Venice who claims that the disease is not from rats at all, but from invisible particles carried on the wind. Everyone laughs. Invisible disease, they say. Next, he'll tell us about flying machines. You don't laugh. You lie in bed, scratching your ankle, listening to the rustle of small feet in the walls. You wonder if the rats sleep better than you do. You wonder if they dream. You wonder if they know they're the most feared creatures in the world. You close your eyes and think about cats, about whiskers and quiet purrs and soft fur. You picture one curling on your chest, a guardian against the dark. You dream of Lady Whiskers, her smug cat, and a world with fewer fleas. And you scratch, just once more, before sleep finally wins. You look in the mirror. Oh wait, you don't have a mirror. Those are rare, expensive, and generally considered a little suspicious. Vanity isn't a virtue right now. But you do catch your reflection in a puddle. It ripples slightly as a pig walks by. Still, it's enough. And wow, you look like someone who wrestled a chimney and lost. Your skin is blotchy. Your cheeks are pale, and your nose is red. Not cute red, not I've been out in the snow red, more like I've inhaled centuries of soot and bad decisions. You run your fingers over your face and feel rough patches, little bumps, maybe a mystery rash or two. It's okay. You're about to improve your appearance. With what? Lead. Yes, lead. Because the medieval concept of beauty says pale skin equals purity, wealth, and health. And since actual health is harder to find than a clean bucket, you fake it. You apply a paste made from lead and vinegar, also known as ceruse. It whitens your face beautifully, and slowly poisons you. Beauty is pain, right? Historians still argue whether people fully understood the dangers of lead-based makeup, or if they just assumed the dizziness and hair loss were part of the glamour. Either way, you dab the creamy paste over your cheeks and feel momentarily fancy, until your lips start tingling and you realize you've accidentally licked some. Then there's the eyeliner, made from soot or crushed antimony. You apply it with a tiny stick and instantly look more mysterious. You also look like you haven't slept in 12 years, which is accurate. If you're upper class, maybe you have rosewater or beeswax-based creams to smooth the skin, or crushed pearls, or powdered horn, or pigeon droppings. Yes, really. Supposedly great for the complexion. Just rub it in and pretend you're not smearing bird business across your face. Some even use stale bread, soaked in milk and honey, as a kind of exfoliating mask. Then they eat it afterward. 2 birds, 1 dubious stone. You hear whispers of an exotic, tooth-blackening trend among certain groups. It's supposed to make teeth look more even, because rotted black teeth mean you're rich enough to afford sugar. You skip that trend. For now, speaking of teeth, let's talk oral hygiene, or the lack thereof. You clean your teeth with twigs, not fancy ones, just broken sticks with frayed ends. You chew until they soften, then rub them across your teeth and hope for the best. Toothpaste? A mix of salt, crushed herbs, maybe charcoal. It feels like scrubbing your mouth with sand and salad. Your breath? Not ideal, but neither is anyone else's. Garlic, beer, and silent suffering are the dominant scents in every conversation. One woman you know carries cloves in her mouth to mask the decay. You try it. You accidentally swallow the clove and burp spice for a day and a half. Hair care is its own battlefield. You wash it rarely, if ever. You brush it with bone combs, mostly to evict the lice. The combing is methodical, almost meditative. You see people doing it on doorsteps, roofs, in fields, during funerals. One hand combs, the other flicks bugs into the fire. You rub your scalp with oil if you can find it. Olive oil, goose fat, or rancid butter. Whatever's available. You convince yourself the smell is earthy. You braid your hair to keep it contained. You tie it up. You wish hats covered more. Men grow beards, big, dramatic beards that say, "I'm too busy surviving to shave." Some twist them into points. Others just let them spread like wild underbrush. Shaving, if attempted, is done with terrifyingly dull knives and a prayer. Women pluck their hairlines to appear more highborn. Literally, they pluck the front of their hair to raise their forehead. A high forehead means beauty and intelligence. You try it once. You cry. You stop. The pain is one thing, but the weird bald patch is worse. There are herbal dyes too. Some rinse their hair with rosemary water for shine. Others try henna or saffron for color. Your friend attempted a beetroot rinse and now looks like she lost a fight with a berry pie. Still, she's happy. She says it brings out her inner fire. You smile and nod. Nails? Clipped with knives, if at all. Dirty, cracked, lined with soil and soot. You don't remember what clean nails look like. You dream of a future with nail brushes and moisturizing cream. You also dream of dragons and never waking up here again. You find an old pot of beauty salve at a merchant's cart. You open it. It smells like wet leaves and burnt wool. You put a little on your elbow. It tingles. You pay 3 whole coins. That's how desperate you are. It'll probably give you a rash. You're okay with that. You once met a woman who painted her lips with crushed berries and coal dust. She looked incredible, like a smudged saint. She died 2 days later. Not from the berries, just from everything else. You think of her sometimes when you try to line your eyes with soot and poke yourself instead. And perfumes. Oh, the perfumes. Most are heavy, musky, more like cologne mixed with tree bark. A popular one smells like aged clove and sad lemon. Another promises to hide all foulness for 3 days. You sniff it. It hides nothing. But still, you dab a bit on your wrist. Not because it works, but because it makes you feel human. A small, scented rebellion against the grime. You finish your routine, your dabs and scratches and combs, and step outside. Someone compliments your glow. You nod, secretly wondering if it's the lead, the grease, or just the sheen of determination. You're not beautiful. But in this world, you're trying. That's something. You walk through the square like a patchy peacock, hoping your eyeliner hasn't run and your pigeon poop foundation hasn't flaked. Tonight, you'll scrape it off with an old cloth and pretend you're at a spa. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Beauty, in the age of plague, is nothing if not persistent. You smell it before you see it. A cloud of something sharp, floral, and oddly spicy drifts through the air like a perfumed ghost. Your nose wrinkles. You follow the trail and arrive at a cart draped in velvet and bottles, dozens of bottles, each one claiming to fight off death. Welcome to the medieval version of perfume, defense by scent. You'd think people wore perfume to smell nice. Technically true. But during the plague, scents become your invisible armor. Everyone is convinced that bad air spreads disease, so the logic follows. If the air around you smells good, you're safe. Safe-ish. Historians still argue how much people believed in miasma, this idea that foul air caused sickness. Some say it was metaphor. Others say it was everything. But for you, it's gospel. If it smells foul, you move. If it smells nice, you breathe deeply and whisper a prayer to Saint Sentidus. You wear a pomander now. It's a little ball of metal filled with crushed herbs and spices, lavender, cloves, rosemary. It dangles from your belt or a chain around your neck. You sniff it whenever you pass a particularly questionable alley. which is all of them. Some folks go bigger. They carry entire sachets of herbs under their arms. One man wears a crown made of dried flowers and bay leaves. He calls it his fragrant halo. His beard contains 3 rosebuds and possibly a bee. And then there's the vinegar. Vinegar of the 4 thieves, specifically. Legend says 4 thieves robbed plague houses and never got sick, because they wore this concoction of vinegar infused with herbs and garlic. It's foul. It stings your nose. It probably works better as a salad dressing. But you dab it behind your ears like it's Chanel No. 5. A quirky trend emerges. People begin carrying oranges stuffed with cloves. These plague apples are chic, portable, and only mildly sticky. You pass a woman holding hers like a sacred relic. She's also chewing mint leaves and squinting at anyone who dares cough. Some take it further, much further. You hear about a man who wears a dead weasel around his neck, convinced its musk will keep the sickness at bay. It does keep people away. Maybe that's the point. You see someone rubbing their body with camphor paste, looking like a melting statue. Another walks by trailing ribbons soaked in jasmine water. It smells like a funeral in a flower shop. A priest sprinkles rose water on his robes and swings a censer full of burning herbs that smells like basil having a nervous breakdown. You try your own mix, sage, lemon peel, and a drop of whatever that blue stuff was. You sniff it and feel vaguely more confident, possibly because your nose goes numb. The beak masks make a return here too. The plague doctors don't wear them to look cool. They fill the long beaks with herbs, vinegar-soaked sponges, and other potpourri ingredients. They literally breathe through a filter of scent. You catch one adjusting the dried posies in his nose tube and muttering about moldy marjoram. Perfume sellers rise in status. Suddenly, they're vital. Apothecaries, priests, and nobles all want their odor shields. You see one seller in a fur-trimmed cloak handing vials to trembling customers like they're life rafts. He even sells plague-themed candles. You buy one out of curiosity. It smells like regret. A musician composes a song called The Fragrance Waltz, which is really just him dancing while waving time and yelling, "Don't die," in different pitches. People cheer. You clap. You also back away. Scent layering becomes a strategy. First, rub garlic on your chest, then rosemary on your wrists, then a spritz of rosewater to cover the whole sad situation. You smell like a confused salad. You don't care. But it's not just personal perfume. Whole rooms are scented now. People burn herbs in their houses. They hang flower bundles from beams. Some fill bowls with scented water and place them on windowsills to purify the air. Others hang herbs from door frames like olfactory dream catchers. There's even a man who lights incense and walks his home's perimeter every morning, chanting, "No stink, no sick." You respect his dedication. His neighbors, not so much. Animals get perfumed too. You pass a mule with a lavender garland, a cat with cinnamon dust on its fur. One family perfumes their chickens. The coop smells like a haunted bakery. Not all scents are nice, though. Some people go for strong. They believe that overpowering smells confuse the plague. Tar, pitch, burning rubbery herbs, things that make your eyes water and question your life choices. You accidentally step into a fog of burning sulfur. Your eyebrows consider leaving your face. You cough. Someone cheers. "It's working," they shout. You disagree. One nobleman wears perfume so thick it clings to the air around him. He enters a room like a scented fog bank. People admire him. Some faint, not from illness, just from olfactory assault. You remember your grandmother's advice. If it stinks, fight back harder. You never thought she meant literally. And so you carry your sachet. You refresh your pomander. You sniff your herbs and squint with suspicion at every unscented stranger. You lie in bed at night, the air heavy with dried lavender and vinegar, your shirt stained from whatever today's protection mix was. You can still smell the clove apple on your pillow. It's oddly comforting. You wonder if the plague can smell. You wonder if it has preferences. You wonder if you're offending it with your patchouli cedar blend. And then you drift off to sleep, swaddled in scent, silently hoping that tomorrow's perfume isn't also tomorrow's funeral fragrance. Hair is everywhere. On your head, in your sleeves, in your food, tangled in your pillow straw. And most of the time, it's not even yours. You don't have the luxury of being picky anymore. You wake up scratching. Again, your scalp feels like it's hosting a festival. Your hair is greasy, matted at the back, and may or may not have twigs in it. You reach up to smooth it down and feel a lump. Not a boil, just yesterday's dried herbs you tucked in as a lice repellent. They didn't work. You don't wash your hair, of course. We covered that. So you comb, carefully. With a bone comb, or a bent piece of wood with notches carved by hand. It's less about grooming and more like hunting. For lice, for nits, for a sense of control. Historians still argue whether people viewed hair maintenance as hygiene or as vanity, but for you, it's both. You don't want to look like you've been dragged backward through a hedge, even if you have been dragged backward through a hedge. Women often braid their hair tightly and cover it with veils or wimples, not just for modesty, but to keep the wind and the fleas off their scalps. You try it. Your braid is lumpy, your veil slips. You pin it with an old fishbone and call it fashion. Men are a little freer, but still have expectations. Long hair on peasants, short hair on monks, somewhere in between for everyone else. The pageboy cut is popular. You attempt it yourself with a knife and a bit of courage. The result is uneven, but so is your life. Beards are a different beast. Thick, patchy, feral. You let yours grow because razors are expensive, and shaving in a cracked mirror is just asking for a plague-inspired neck wound. One guy you know oils his beard with goose fat and claims it keeps the cold out. You suspect it just attracts cats. You hear stories about noble women bleaching their hair with mixtures of saffron and urine to get that perfect golden color. Blonde means elite. You wonder who figured out that recipe and how many eyebrows were harmed in the process. A fringe fact? Some people believe that letting hair grow too long gives the devil a handhold to pull you into sin. One preacher insists that trimming regularly keeps evil away. Another insists that trimming is vanity, and vanity is the real sin. You cut your split ends and feel guilty either way. Body hair? Oh, it's there. Medieval attitudes are flexible. In warmer regions, some women pluck their armpits. In colder climates, everyone embraces the natural wool sweater their genes provided. You're somewhere in the middle, hairy, slightly self-conscious, mostly distracted by bigger problems, like fleas. And yes, the fleas love hair. Scalp hair, arm hair, leg hair, any cozy crevice. You sometimes find one clinging to your eyebrow like it's on holiday. You flick it off. It lands on your knee. You flick again. It disappears. It's probably plotting something. People try strange things. One woman you know coats her hair in a mixture of vinegar and ash. It stuns the lice, she says. It also stuns you. She walks around smelling like a sour fireplace. You keep your distance. Then there's the desperate man who shaved his entire body with a rusty blade. He said he was tired of being a flea motel. He now wears 3 cloaks and shivers constantly. He's still itchy. His eyebrows never grew back. Another fellow claims he hasn't combed his hair since last Lent and says his natural oils are divine protection. His hair does have a halo effect, though it may just be hovering grease. Children have it worst. Their hair gets knotted, sticky, chewed by siblings, and occasionally cut with shears intended for sheep. You see one girl with bangs so uneven they look like mountain peaks. She tells you her brother did it. You nod with solemn respect. There are hats, of course. Woolen caps, linen wraps, fur-trimmed hoods. Not just for warmth, but to hide the chaos underneath. You wear yours pulled low. It doesn't help the lice, but it helps your pride. You once saw a traveling bard with long, shining hair braided with blue ribbons. He smelled like rosemary and spoke in rhymes. You stared at him like he was a unicorn. He died of plague 2 days later. Even fairy tale hair can't save you here. Occasionally, a monk or nun will offer rosemary oil for the scalp. You rub it in. It tingles. Maybe that's the rosemary. Maybe that's just your nerves. Either way, you sleep better that night. A barber visits the village once a month. He sets up a stool and sharpens his blade dramatically. People line up for haircuts, beards, lancing boils, pulling teeth. It's a one-stop shop of medieval wellness. You go for a trim and leave with half an eyebrow. It's fine. You weren't using it much. Some towns have rules about head coverings in public. No hair shall be seen during holy days, the priest bellows. You tie your veil tighter. Someone faints in the heat. No one dares remove their hood. The Lord sees all, but you pray he ignores dandruff. The market sells combs carved with saints on the handle. Holy grooming, they say. You buy one shaped like Saint Sebastian. Every time you use it, you feel mildly protected and slightly stabbed. At night, you tie your hair up if you have the energy. If not, it spreads across your straw like a second blanket. You dream of scissors, of shampoo, of a single day without itching. You wake up to a flea bite behind your ear. You groan. You scratch. You check your braid. Still there, still holding. A little frizzy, but strong. Like you smooth your veil, tuck a sprig of mint into your hood, and step outside. You might be hairy in all the wrong places and patchy in the rest, but you're surviving. And here, that's the most beautiful thing of all. You hear the bells before you see them. Slow, steady, echoing through the gray morning mist. A procession of monks walks past, hoods low, robes swaying, sandals slapping the wet stone. You pause, partly out of respect, partly because they're blocking the street, and one of them is holding a large wooden cross you'd rather not bump into. You watch them disappear into the fog, chanting in low Latin, and for a moment the world feels still, peaceful even, until the smell of the nearby fish stall hits you square in the soul again. Spiritual hygiene. That's what matters here. Not body, not skin, not teeth. The soul. Your dirtiness is almost a badge of virtue, evidence that you're not focused on worldly vanity, but on loftier, holier things. You haven't washed in a month? Saintly. You fasted until your knees buckle? Extra saintly. You accidentally inhaled incense and passed out? Divine bonus points. Monks and nuns live by strict rules. They pray, they chant, they copy manuscripts, and yes, they occasionally invent proto-toothpaste made from crushed mint leaves and sage. It's gritty, bitter, and more of a breath freshener than an actual cleaning agent, but it beats chewing on birch bark. Historians still argue whether medieval monasteries truly emphasized cleanliness or just tolerated it as a byproduct of ritual. But there's evidence. Some abbeys had designated wash days. Some even had running water, channeled through stone pipes. Basically, plumbing's earliest beta test. You hear about a Cistercian abbey where the monks wash their hands before meals. Not just on feast days, every day. You wonder if they're royalty or time travelers. But don't get too excited. Personal bathing is still considered suspiciously indulgent. One monk wrote that bathing more than twice a year showed an affection for vanity and softness. You bathe once a season and feel like a trendsetter. Still, some religious orders keep themselves tidy in specific ways. Tonsure, for example. That ring-shaped haircut monks wear? It's not fashion, it's humility. The idea is to reject worldly beauty. Also, it makes you easy to identify in a crowd, in case someone needs a blessing or a confession, or directions to the least unclean latrine. Monks wake early, some before sunrise, and begin their day with a wash of the hands and face. Cold water, from a basin, possibly shared. You try it once. It wakes you up. It also makes your teeth chatter and your nose run. Nuns, meanwhile, tend to be more practical. Many run infirmaries. They clean wounds, apply poultices, and whisper prayers over the sick. Some mix their own herbal salves, using chamomile, lavender, myrrh. You meet a nun once who offers you a salve for your mysterious rash. It smells like thyme and soot. It works. You name the rash Gregory and bid it farewell. There's one tale about a monk who refused to bathe for 40 years. When he finally died, they found his robe had become part of his skin. You try not to think about that during dinner. Despite everything, religious folks do care about sanitation within the abbey. They sweep, they burn herbs to cleanse the air. Some even have dedicated reredos, lavatories with flowing water, often perched over a river. It's a holy flush. Of course, the common folk view monks and nuns with a mix of reverence and skepticism. You respect their piety, but also you wonder how clean their robes really are under all that incense and chanting. You once saw a friar trip and his sleeve unrolled to reveal an impressive collection of mystery stains. He smiled like a man confident in his salvation. Pilgrims often stop by monasteries for healing. You tag along once, foot blistered and sole slightly frayed. A monk bandages your foot with surprising gentleness. He hums a hymn about Saint Sebastian and gives you nettle tea. It's bitter. You choke it down. Your foot does get better. Probably unrelated, but still, you hear whispers about relics, bones of saints, vials of holy water, bits of fabric said to cure disease. Some people rub these on their foreheads. Others sleep with them under their pillow. You once touched a holy toe wrapped in silk. It smelled like old cheese. You haven't been sick since. Coincidence? Maybe. And while monks focus on souls, they're also amateur botanists. Abbey gardens bloom with healing herbs, marjoram for fever, wormwood for digestion, mint for bad breath. You steal a sprig once. You chew it thoughtfully. You still smell like onion, but a minty onion. There's something oddly comforting about the religious approach to hygiene. It's not about looking good. It's about doing good. About being right with God, even if your feet are black with grime. Some say illness is divine punishment. Others say it's a test. You say it's exhausting. You once watched a priest sprinkle holy water on a plague victim's bed, whisper a Latin blessing, and place a crucifix near the window to keep the air clean. You think it helped. Not the illness, but the fear. And sometimes, that's more important. Quirky ritual of the week. A convent bathes its statues once a year. Full soap brush, rinse. The Virgin Mary gets rosemary water. St. George gets a scrub behind the ears. You watch the ceremony once. You feel inexplicably peaceful. Cleanliness, even symbolic, has power. You wonder if there's a patron saint of lice, or of unwashed hair, or of people trying their best under unspeakable circumstances. You'd pray to them nightly. You already pray, in your own way. Every time you don't sneeze in a crowded alley, you whisper a thank you to someone, anyone who might be listening. At night, you light a candle, a gift from a nun. She said it was infused with lavender and prayer. You breathe in deeply. You still itch. You still smell faintly of garlic and goat. But your heart feels a little quieter. Maybe the monks are right. Maybe the soul can be soothed even when the body can't be bathed. You pull your blanket up to your chin and imagine being cradled in candlelight and Gregorian chant. And for a moment, just a moment, the grime fades. You see him before anyone else does, tall, cloaked, silhouette sharp against the pale morning sky. At first, you think it's a bird, then a shadow. Then you realize it's one of them, a plague doctor. And yes, the beak is real. He walks slowly, deliberately, robes swaying with each step, gloves tucked tight around his wrists. The mask makes his face unreadable, long, curved, like a bird about to recite a poem or bite you. You hold your breath. You're not even sick. But somehow, that beak makes you feel guilty, infected, cursed. The doctor stops in front of a house. A red X is smeared across the door. He doesn't knock. He just enters. The door closes behind him with the softest click, like a sigh. You don't want to know what's happening in there. Historians still argue how useful plague doctors actually were. Did they help? Did they just count the bodies? Were they healers or human paperwork? You don't know. You just know that whenever the beaked mask shows up, someone inside doesn't come out again. You hear rumors that the mask's beak is stuffed with herbs, juniper, mint, camphor. It filters the bad air. It also keeps the doctor from gagging. That part might be more important. Between the smell of death, unwashed flesh, and half-rotted linens, the air is a crime. You once saw a doctor refresh his beak stuffing in the middle of the street. He pulled out a wad of wilted rosemary and replaced it with something that looked like dried orange peel. He adjusted the beak, took a deep inhale, and walked on. You were both repulsed and weirdly impressed. The rest of the outfit is just as dramatic. A long leather coat, gloves, tall boots, everything sealed tight. Like armor for a different kind of war. A war you're not winning. People say the robes are waxed to resist plague particles. You poke a hanging cloak once, and your finger slides off like it's been greased. You wipe your hand on your sleeve and pretend that was fine. And then there's the cane. Oh yes, the cane. A long wooden rod, polished and sinister. The doctor uses it to poke patients, lift clothing, check pulses from a distance. You watch one use it to nudge a man's swollen neck. The man groans. The doctor steps back, writes something in a book, then walks away. Sometimes the cane is used to fend off desperate families. Sometimes to check if someone is dead. Sometimes you wonder if it's more for the doctor's peace of mind than yours. You meet a plague doctor once, briefly. Your cousin was sick, fever, cough, a boil on her leg. You stood outside the door as the doctor entered, holding your cousin's hand from afar. You whispered prayers. She whispered your name. When the doctor came out, he said nothing, just handed you a small pouch of herbs. "Hang this," he said, pointing at the doorway. You did. Your cousin died 2 days later. You kept the pouch anyway. Some towns hire plague doctors, others are volunteers, some are trained physicians. Others are desperate men with a strong stomach and no better plan. You can't always tell the difference. There's a rumor that some plague doctors take coins in exchange for gentle ends. You don't want to believe it, but you know too many people who slipped away right after the doctor's visit. Peaceful, yes, but still, a quirky tidbit. Some doctors keep pets. One in a nearby village has a black cat that rides on his shoulder. Another carries a small owl in a cage. They say the animals absorb the evil. You think they just like company. You don't blame them. You pass by a house where a plague doctor left a note on the door. It reads, 3 inside, 1 alive. Return at dawn. You read it 3 times. You don't sleep that night. Not everyone fears them. Some people chase plague doctors down, begging for medicine, for blessings, for advice. The doctors rarely speak. They tilt their heads like curious birds. They hand out herbs, sometimes just rocks with crosses carved into them. Children mock them, of course. They call them crowmen and flap their arms and caw in the street. You once saw a kid get smacked by a nun for doing it near a plague house. You didn't laugh much. But deep down, the beak gets to you. Because behind it, there's no face, no eyes, just black glass circles. You can't see humanity. You can't see pity. And in this world, pity is currency. If someone looks at you and doesn't flinch, you feel lighter. Plague doctors don't flinch, but only because they've covered every nerve with distance. At night, you dream of the beak. It floats above your bed, sniffing, judging, silent. You wake up sweating, heart racing. You light a candle. You check your skin for bumps. And still, you trust them. You do. Because who else is there? The priest offers prayers. The barber offers pain. The apothecary offers moldy herbs and whispered hope. But the plague doctor walks in, sees the worst, and walks out alive. That means something. You begin watching them from afar, not stalking, just observing. You note how they move, how they never hurry, how they clean their gloves with vinegar-soaked rags, how they burn their boot soles over coals at night. They've seen it all. They carry it with them, inside that beak. Eventually, one walks past you and pauses. You freeze. The beak turns slightly. You see yourself reflected in the eye lenses, small, dirty, terrified. The doctor reaches into a pouch. You hold your breath. He pulls out a small packet, hands it to you. Breathe this when you feel weak, he says. His voice is muffled but calm. You nod, clutch the packet, and step aside. As he walks on, you realize something. Maybe the beak is a mask. But the kindness wasn't. You go home and hang the packet above your bed. It smells like thyme and old paper. You sleep beneath it, dreaming of crows, clean air, and the quiet rustle of leather robes walking away from death. You've never been more desperate. Your neighbor has boils the size of plums. The baker's apprentice collapsed mid-need. Even the local pig, yes, the pig, is wheezing. You're not sick yet, but it feels inevitable, like waiting for the sky to fall. So you start trying things. All the things. Even the weird ones. Especially the weird ones. Welcome to the hygiene hacks of the truly panicked. At first, it's simple stuff. You burn herbs in the corners of your room. Sage, rosemary, mugwort. The smoke stings your eyes and sets off a 3-day cough, but you do it anyway. You light dried orange peels on a clay dish and wave the fumes around like a clumsy priest. You don't care if it works. It feels like doing something. Your friend recommends sitting in smoke. Literally, build a small fire, sit over the smoldering herbs, and let the smoke seep into your skin. It closes the pores, she says. Keeps out the plague. You try it. You smell like a roasted squirrel for days, but you feel oddly proud, like a baked warrior. Then someone mentions vinegar baths. Not full-body ones. You'd need barrels for that, but wiping your limbs down with cloths soaked in strong vinegar. You do it at dawn, gritting your teeth against the sting. You tell yourself this is what discipline looks like. You're 80% vinegar now, a walking salad. Historians still argue whether these hygiene measures were protective, symbolic, or placebo. You don't argue, you just grab the nearest garlic clove and rub it under your arms. You're not taking chances. A merchant passes through town with a cart of sulfur sticks. Light one in each room, he yells. Burns the sickness out. You buy 3, you light them. Your walls turn yellow and your dog howls, but the air smells sterile, like boiled eggs and misery. And then comes the smoke tent trend. You see people building little huts out of old cloth and sitting inside while friends burn herbs outside the door. You try one. It's humid. It's smelly. It's probably giving you respiratory problems. But you emerge glistening and hopeful. That's something. Quirky tip from a shepherd. Hang a dead toad around your neck. Why? It pulls the poison. You do it. For 2 hours. Then you catch a whiff of the toad's afterlife and take it off. Even you have standards. Another neighbor swears by drinking crushed pearls in wine. It purifies the blood. You try it. You cough. It tastes like gritty heartbreak. You switch back to water and pretend you're still noble. You hear a tale of a woman who buried onions under her bed, one for each family member. Each morning, she checked them. The blackest one revealed who'd die next. You test it. All your onions are black. You bury the onions and the idea. Then there's the sheep fat method. Melted tallow mixed with mint and sage, rubbed into the soles of the feet. Blocks the disease from entering through the ground, they say. You slather your feet and immediately slide across your floor like a greased eel. The bruises heal. Your faith in sheep fat does not. More hacks emerge every day. Tie a bag of salt to your ankle. Wear yellow socks. Sleep facing east. Whisper your name backwards into a mirror. You try them all. One at a time. Sometimes 2 at once. Sometimes just for laughs. And then there's the mercury. A traveling alchemist sells tiny bottles of quicksilver. He says it'll align your inner elements. You dab 1 drop on your wrist. It burns cold. You feel nothing until later, when your vision blurs and your teeth feel loose. You toss the bottle into the river and whisper an apology to the fish. You meet a man who walks backward everywhere. If the plague can't see your face, it won't follow you, he explains. You try it for a day. You fall into a well. The man visits you in bandages, still walking backward. You admire his commitment. Your cousin starts wearing mirrors on her sleeves to reflect the sickness away. You ask if it's working. She shrugs. You notice she hasn't gotten sick yet. You start sewing shiny buttons onto your cloak. One healer suggests spitting on your doorstep each morning. Marks your territory, he says. Like a dog. You do it. You feel ridiculous. But your house hasn't been cursed yet, so you begin collecting recipes. Smoked snail mucus mixed with honey. Burnt frog legs crushed into powder. Mustard seeds steeped in wine, applied directly to your belly button. You start a notebook. You call it the Book of Maybe Not Dying. You try fasting for 3 days. You nearly faint. You try overeating. You feel bloated and suspicious. You return to bread and weak ale and call it moderate saintliness. Your last hope? Music. Yes, music. There's a rumor that playing certain songs, lute tunes mostly, can confuse the plague. You don't own a lute, so you hum, loudly, awkwardly, every evening. Your neighbor tells you to stop. You hum louder. You feel safe in the sound. Some say dancing helps. You've seen whole groups in the town square, spinning, stomping, shrieking, trying to shake the plague out of their bones. You join them once. You twist your ankle but feel strangely liberated. You hobble home and declare it a success. Eventually, you realize something. These hacks aren't just about hygiene. They're about control. In a world where everything is rotting and random, these strange rituals give you purpose. Hope. A schedule. You wipe your forehead with rosewater. You chew a fennel seed. You light a stick of mugwort and whisper a rhyme you barely remember. You hang a pouch of mint near the door. You feel better. Not cleaner. Not safer. But calmer. That's enough. You lie in bed with your smoke-stained hair and vinegar-soaked feet. You smell like a cursed salad. You dream of frogs, mirrors, backward men, and lutes. Tomorrow, someone will suggest bathing in barley water under the full moon. You'll try it. Because you're not done fighting yet. The church bells toll again, slow, heavy, as if each chime is dragging something behind it. You know what that means. Another body. Maybe several. You stop what you're doing and turn toward the sound, like everyone else, heads bowed. Eyes distant. They're carrying a wrapped figure through the street now, tightly bound in linen, stiff as a log, one hand just barely visible beneath the folds. You watch in silence, no wailing, no weeping, not anymore. You're all cried out. Even death has a routine now. You follow the procession, not out of obligation but out of numb momentum. The burial site is just outside town, past the broken fence and the blackened elm tree that seems to lean a little more each day. The grave is shallow. The ground is too hard to dig deep, and the grave diggers are too few. Everyone works in pairs, quickly, silently. The body is lowered. A priest mutters something in Latin, half remembered, half mumbled. He splashes holy water, or maybe it's just water. You're not sure anyone's been able to tell the difference for months. Historians still argue whether plague victims received proper funerals consistently, or if the overwhelming death toll simply erased ceremony. In your case, the answer is clear. If the body gets buried at all, it's a blessing. Still, some people try to make it right. You see them clutching cloths soaked in rosewater, placing sprigs of rosemary on the linen, tying small crosses to the wrists. One woman leaves a crust of bread. For the journey, she says. A few still light beeswax candles and whisper the old prayers. You do your part. You close your eyes and murmur the name of the dead, even if you don't know them. It feels important, like drawing a line between them and the nameless piles you've seen elsewhere. Then there are the mass graves. You've seen them. Wide pits, dug with haste and horror, covered quickly. Marked with stones, if marked at all. No names, no rites. Just layers of bodies, linen, and the heavy silence of abandonment. You still dream about the way they looked, how the cloth sagged around limbs, how the sun hit the folds like sculptures of grief. A quirky practice arises. People begin sewing herbs into the linen shrouds. Lavender, thyme, sometimes cloves. Anything to mask the smell, as if that might make the burial kinder. One man ties a sprig of basil into his wife's cloth. She always liked it, he says, voice cracking. You try not to cry, but you do. Sometimes the dead are burned, especially when the bodies pile too high. It's brutal, but necessary. You've seen the fires, tall, angry things that lick at the sky like tongues of judgment. You've watched loved ones disappear into flame. You tell yourself it's cleansing. It doesn't help. Even in mourning, there's danger. Families who dress the dead risk catching the sickness. Some priests refuse to anoint bodies up close. One simply tosses blessed water toward the corpse from a safe distance and retreats. No one judges him. You remember your friend Marie. When her daughter died, she scrubbed her tiny hands with soap made from lye and ashes. She combed her hair with shaking fingers and wrapped her in a linen shawl embroidered with birds. She liked birds, Marie whispered. The next morning, Marie was gone too. Sometimes, you help prepare the dead. Not often, but enough. You wear a scarf soaked in vinegar over your nose, hands wrapped in layers of cloth. You wash the skin gently if you can. You whisper apologies. You feel their weight, their silence. It changes you. There's a strange dignity in it, though. A moment where the world slows, where the air stills, where you remember that these were people with jokes, with stories, with favorite songs. You try to honor them, even as the stink clings to your sleeves for days. You see innovations, too. One group begins crafting wooden grave markers, simple things carved with names, or drawings of stars, or clumsy prayers. You help make one. You carve a tiny heart. You feel ridiculous. You do it anyway. A few families use perfumed oils, if they have them, to anoint the dead. Not because they think it'll help, but because it's the last gift they can give. One final comfort for the skin. One last goodbye through scent and touch. You've taken to writing names on scraps of parchment and placing them under stones. You don't know if it matters. But it feels less empty than silence. You meet a tanner who lost all his children. He wraps each in soft leather. "The best I ever made," he says, and buries them behind his cottage. He won't leave the property now. "This is their place," he mutters. "I'll wait here." One abbey tries something different. They hold open-air funerals, where mourners stand far apart and sing low hymns while wind whips through the field. The music carries. It's haunting, beautiful even. For a moment you believe again. Then it ends. Sometimes the townsfolk light lanterns and send them downriver with names painted on the sides. It started as a child's idea. So their names float to heaven. You watched a dozen flickering lights drift out to sea one night. You cried. Again. And yes, you've written your own name on a scrap of cloth. Just in case. Folded it up. Placed it under your mattress. A small act of readiness. Not fear. Just honesty. You lie awake at night, sometimes tracing the shape of the small cross you wear. It's worn smooth. It smells faintly of rosemary. You think about all the people you've buried, wrapped, whispered for. Tomorrow, you'll help dig another grave. Maybe two, maybe more. You're tired, but you'll still tie a ribbon to each one. You'll still say the names, because even when the world forgets how to care, you remember. You always will. You wake up before sunrise, eyes crusted, hands sore from yesterday's digging. The air is still, too still. You sit up slowly, waiting for your body to remember how to move. You listen for the bells, none yet. But you know they'll come. They always do. And still, a small part of you wonders, is it working? Is any of it? You've done the smoke tents, the vinegar baths, the roasted garlic under the pillow, the mint-stuffed pomander, the hopeful prayers whispered into soup. You've burned rosemary, you've burned your socks, you've watched your neighbors burn entire houses down, just to purify the space. And yet, people keep dying. Historians still argue whether anything helped during the Black Plague, if any of these desperate measures made a real difference. Was it the herbs? The isolation? The occasional burst of common sense in a sea of chaos? Or did the plague just do what it wanted, laughing politely at your onion necklaces and rat hunts? You sit at the edge of your bed and flex your fingers. Your nails are blackened with soil. Your clothes haven't been clean in months. You smell like ash and thyme. But you're alive. Today, anyway. You look around your room, a half-used jar of goose fat, a sprig of dried sage nailed to the door, a cracked dish of lavender water, a beakless mask you made as a joke, but sometimes wear when feeling particularly fragile. a personal museum of half-truths and hopeful rituals. You remember the people who swore by those things. The man who bathed every Tuesday, the woman who only ate white foods, the priest who kissed no one, touched nothing, and still fell ill, the child who wore 10 silver rings and died in his sleep. You remember the ones who gave up too, who stopped brushing their hair, stopped cleaning their hands, stopped moving entirely. They didn't last long either. You pull on your boots, stiff with grime. You tie a red ribbon around your wrist. Why? You don't know. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's just to feel a little less invisible. You head outside. The street is quiet, for now. A few others walk heads down, like pilgrims on a road that leads nowhere in particular. You nod to them. They nod back. No one smiles. You pass the market square, empty. You pass the baker's stall, boarded up. You pass a window with herbs tied to the frame. You don't remember whose home that is anymore. You think about all the things you did to stay clean, to stay safe. How many times you scrubbed your hands raw with wine. How many times you sat in that choking smoke. How many times you whispered, "Just let me live." And you wonder, was it worth it? Then you see an old woman sitting on a bench, gently combing her granddaughter's hair. The child hums. The woman smiles, lines deepening in her face like cracks in ancient wood. You stop walking. You just watch. It's not about cleanliness. Not really. It's about care. The rituals aren't saving you. They're reminding you that you're worth saving. You keep walking. Back in your home, you light a candle. Not because you're afraid, but because you need the light. You wipe your face with a cloth dampened in water and lemon peel. You comb your hair with fingers. You press a sprig of rosemary to your chest and inhale. You look at the sky through your window, gray as usual. But there's a sliver of gold at the edge. You decide it's dawn. You decide that counts. You sit on your bed and feel the ache in your spine. You close your eyes. You breathe. You listen to the silence and the weight of everything you've survived. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Not because it works, but because it's all you can do. You lie down, hands resting on your stomach, like you've seen in a dozen funerals. You feel the crust of dirt under your nails, the salt on your skin, the ache of hope in your chest. You're not clean, but you're alive, and maybe for now, that's enough. You're lying down now, your head heavy on the pillow, your breath slowing with the weight of everything you've seen tonight. The dark, the dirt, the smoke and whispers, they all drift like fog behind your eyes. You've walked through crumbling alleys and burning herbs. You've looked into the beaked face of fear and kept walking. Let the streets fade now. Let the coughing voices, the scratching linen, the clinking vials grow quiet. You've survived another night, even if it was only in story. You've endured the weight of a world gone wild with desperation, and yet you found small comforts. A braid tied tight, a mint leaf tucked behind your ear, a whisper in the candlelight. It's okay now. You can let go. Let your limbs go soft. Let your fingers rest. Let your breath ease into the kind of rhythm that only sleep understands. You've earned it, not because you found a cure, but because you kept going. Somewhere, far away, a bell tolls again. But tonight, it doesn't call for you. Tonight, it's just a sound, muffled, distant, fading behind the walls of dreams. Sleep now, traveler of time and soot and silence. Sleep deep, sleep clean. End of script. Sweet dreams.